My journey began as I drove my truck deep into Washington State's Olympic Peninsula. Today is February 10th, 2026, but this adventure took place just a couple of years ago. The air grew colder and the sky turned a soft grey. Giant trees, covered in thick green moss, stood like ancient sentinels guarding a hidden world. This place is famous for its wildness. It is a land of temperate rainforests, rugged mountains, and a wild, untamed coastline. You can feel the power of nature here with every breath you take. It is a place where civilization feels a million miles away, and anything seems possible. The landscape itself is a character in this story. The forests are so dense that sunlight struggles to touch the ground. Mist hangs in the air, creating a mysterious and sometimes spooky atmosphere. Water is everywhere, from the constant drizzle to the powerful rivers filled with salmon. This rich environment supports a huge amount of wildlife. I saw herds of Roosevelt elk grazing peacefully in the meadows, and I knew that black bears and mountain lions were watching from the shadows. This is the perfect habitat. A place where a large, intelligent creature could live for centuries, hidden from our modern world. As I set up my first camp on the edge of the mountains, a profound sense of isolation washed over me. I was completely alone. The only sounds were the whisper of the wind through the tall trees and the distant call of a bird. This is what I came for. I wanted to immerse myself in this wilderness, to disconnect from the noise of daily life, and connect with something more primal. The search for Bigfoot is more than just looking for a monster. It is about exploring the last great wildernesses on our planet and confronting the unknown. My mission was simple: to spend 2 nights solo in this vast wilderness. I wanted to experience the environment that has fueled legends for generations. I came prepared with my tent, my cameras, and a healthy dose of respect for the power of this place. I was not here to conquer the forest, but to listen to its secrets. The Olympic Peninsula is considered ground zero for Sasquatch research in North America, and I was about to step into the heart of the mystery. The adventure had truly begun, and the deep green forest was waiting to see what I would do next. Deep within the emerald heart of the Olympic rainforest, the air is thick with moisture and mystery. Here, beneath towering canopies and tangled moss, stories have taken root for generations, stories of a being that walks the shadowed corridors of these woods, unseen but never entirely absent. For countless centuries, the indigenous peoples of the Pacific Northwest have honored the presence of this elusive creature in their oral traditions. Their stories are etched into cedar and stone, whispered through the rustling leaves and the rush of mountain streams. Known by many names, Sasquatch, Tsemekwes, or the wild man of the woods, these beings are described with remarkable consistency, immense, covered in hair, and moving with a silent intelligence that sets them apart from any known animal. These are not tales of monsters lurking in the dark, but of guardians, beings who command respect and caution, who are said to protect the balance of the forest. The stories speak of creatures who move like shadows among the ancient trees, watching over the land and its creatures, intervening only when the natural order is threatened. In these legends, the rainforest is not merely a backdrop, but a living world, with the Sasquatch as one of its most enigmatic inhabitants, another tribe hidden deep within the folds of the mountains. These stories are woven with warnings to tread lightly, to respect the boundaries of the wild, and to never underestimate what may be watching from the shadows. As time passed, these ancient tales were joined by a flood of modern accounts, each one adding a new layer to the legend. When settlers, loggers, and miners ventured into these remote forests, they too reported strange happenings, unexplained sounds echoing through the trees, and fleeting glimpses of something massive moving just out of sight. The night would come alive with piercing cries, echoing through the valleys, sounds that defied explanation and sent chills through even the bravest hearts. In the morning, enormous footprints would appear in the mud, prints too large and too human to be dismissed as bear or elk. Occasionally, a shadow would dart between the trees, vanishing before anyone could get a clear look, leaving only questions and a lingering sense of awe. These encounters were not the stuff of campfire stories, but detailed observations from those who lived and worked in the wild, their accounts marked by sincerity and a deep respect for the unknown. In a land still largely unexplored, these reports became part of the region's living history, testimonies to the enduring mystery of the Olympic rainforest. The remarkable consistency of these sightings, spanning decades and generations, is what gives the legend its staying power. Even now, the stories continue to grow, as new witnesses add their voices to the chorus of the past. Modern explorers, hikers, campers, and researchers venture into the depths of the Olympic Peninsula, equipped with technology but still vulnerable to the unknown. Many describe an uncanny sensation of being watched, the hairs on their neck rising as the forest seems to close in around them. At night, heavy footsteps crunch through the undergrowth, circling campsites and vanishing before a light can be shone. In the morning, strange structures appear, arches of bent saplings, stacks of logs, and patterns in the forest that defy easy explanation. Sometimes, rocks are hurled from the shadows, landing with a thud in the moss, always from a direction where nothing can be seen. Today's explorers document their experiences with smartphones, GPS, and audio recorders, adding new evidence to the ever-growing archive of the unknown. Each new discovery, each footprint, each unexplained sound breathes new life into the legend, ensuring it endures in the digital age. The Olympic Peninsula stands at the crossroads of myth and reality, where ancient stories and modern encounters merge in the mist. In this place, the boundaries between the known and the unknown blur, and the forest itself seems to breathe with secrets. The stories are not just told, they are etched into the very landscape, in carvings, in footprints, and in the silent testimony of the trees. Every shifting shadow, every unexplained sound in the night, becomes a reminder that the forest is alive with possibilities. The result is a powerful sense of wonder, tinged with a primal fear, a feeling that the world is still wild and that some mysteries remain just out of reach. In the Olympic rainforest, the legend of Bigfoot endures, not just as a story, but as a living question, inviting us to look deeper, listen closer, and wonder what still waits to be discovered in the heart of the wild. Deep within the heart of the Olympic rainforest, where the air is thick with moisture and the ground is carpeted in emerald moss, a unique scientific endeavor is quietly unfolding. Here, beneath the towering canopies and among the ancient ferns, the Olympic project is redefining the search for answers to one of North America's most enduring mysteries. Rather than relying on anecdote or speculation, the Olympic project employs rigorous scientific methodology, focusing on the collection and analysis of physical evidence within this untouched ecosystem. The team deploys an array of non-invasive monitoring tools, motion-activated cameras, audio recorders, and environmental sensors, strategically placed to capture any sign of unusual activity without disturbing the delicate balance of the forest. Every detail of the environment is meticulously documented, from the shifting patterns of fog to the subtle changes in humidity and temperature that define this temperate rainforest. Among the most compelling discoveries are the mysterious nest structures, large, intricately woven beds of branches and ferns, found deep within the forest where few humans ever tread. These nests bear a striking resemblance to those constructed by great apes, yet their presence in the Pacific Northwest remains unexplained by known wildlife behavior. The Olympic project's approach is methodical. Every hair, every fragment of organic material is collected with sterile tools and catalogued for laboratory analysis. In the lab, advanced genetic sequencing is performed on these samples. The results have revealed DNA markers that do not correspond to any known animal in the region, hinting at the existence of an unclassified primate species. Beyond nests and DNA, the project has documented large, anatomically distinct footprints. Three-dimensional scans reveal features such as a flexible mid-foot, unlike those of bears or humans, suggesting a unique form of locomotion. Audio recorders have captured a range of vocalizations, howls, whoops, and knocks that do not match any known animal, adding another layer of mystery to the investigation. Thermal imaging has produced compelling visuals, including one sequence that appears to show two large, heat-emitting figures moving cautiously behind a tree, their forms distinct from any local wildlife. All of this evidence, gathered with scientific precision and respect for the environment, is building a case for the existence of a real biological entity that has so far eluded formal recognition. The Olympic Project's work stands as a testament to the power of careful observation and the enduring mysteries that still linger in the world's wildest places. My first night in the Olympic Rainforest unfolded on a remote forestry road perched high along the mountain's edge. The world here was vast and untamed, the road a thin scar winding through a living cathedral of ancient trees and moss-draped branches. As dusk faded, the air thickened with the scent of wet earth and cedar, and a hush settled over the forest, broken only by the distant call of an owl and the soft patter of rain beginning to fall. The sky above was a shifting tapestry of storm clouds, their bellies heavy with rain, casting the forest in a deep blue twilight. The wind began to rise, threading through the towering firs and hemlocks, making the canopy sway and creak. Each gust sent a shiver through the undergrowth, scattering needles and leaves across the muddy road, while the first drops of rain tapped out a tentative rhythm on the dense foliage. Soon the storm arrived in full force. Rain hammered the forest with relentless energy, drumming on every surface, bark, leaf, and stone. The wind howled, bending the trees until their crowns seemed to touch the clouds, and the entire landscape became a symphony of movement and sound. Mist curled between the trunks, swirling in the headlights of the occasional lightning flash, revealing the immense scale and solitude of the wilderness. The forest itself seemed to come alive in the storm. Water coursed down mossy trunks, pooling in hollows and running in rivulets along the road's edge. Ferns flattened under the weight of the rain, and the undergrowth glistened with 1,000 droplets, each reflecting the fleeting light. The air was electric, charged with the raw power of nature, and every shadow seemed deeper, every sound more mysterious. In the heart of the tempest, the rainforest revealed its true character, untamed, ancient, and indifferent to human presence. The wind's roar drowned out all else, and the rain blurred the boundaries between earth and sky. The only illumination came from brief flashes of lightning, which cast the trees in stark relief, their silhouettes dancing against the stormy sky. As the night wore on, the storm's intensity ebbed and flowed. At times the rain softened to a gentle whisper, allowing the subtle sounds of the forest to emerge, the drip of water from a cedar bough, the distant rush of a swollen creek, the rustle of leaves in the wind. Then, with little warning, the tempest would surge again, rattling the branches and sending sheets of rain cascading through the canopy. The isolation was profound. The road vanished into darkness in both directions, swallowed by the endless forest. No lights, no voices, no sign of civilization, only the ceaseless rhythm of the storm and the vast, breathing presence of the rainforest. The world felt ancient and immense, a place where time moved differently and the concerns of the outside world faded into insignificance. As dawn approached, the storm finally began to break. The rain slowed to a drizzle, and the first pale light filtered through the dripping canopy. Mist clung to the forest floor, swirling around the trunks and softening the harsh lines of the night. The air was cool and clean, filled with the scent of rain and earth, and the forest glowed with a quiet, ethereal beauty. In the aftermath, the rainforest was transformed. Every leaf and branch sparkled with water, and the ground steamed as the sun's rays touched the wet earth. The storm had passed, but its memory lingered in the hush that followed, a reminder of the power and mystery of this wild, lonely place. Alone on that remote road, surrounded by the endless green and the echoes of the storm, I felt both humbled and exhilarated. The Olympic rainforest had revealed itself in all its elemental glory, and I was left with a deep respect for the forces that shaped this land, a place where nature reigns and solitude is absolute. As dawn broke over the Olympic rainforest, the world transformed. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the towering canopy, painting the forest floor in shifting patterns of gold and green. Mist clung to the undergrowth, swirling gently as the air began to warm. The ground was saturated from the night's rain, each step releasing the scent of rich, living earth. Patches of moss glowed emerald in the morning light, and the air was thick with the freshness that follows a storm. These conditions were ideal for revealing the secrets of the night. The soft mud preserved every impression, tiny claw marks, delicate bird prints, and the winding trails of slugs and beetles. If any large creature had passed through, its presence would be etched clearly in the earth. Yet the mud remained mostly undisturbed, save for the subtle marks of smaller forest dwellers. The forest was hushed, the only sounds the distant drip of water and the occasional call of a waking bird. Every detail seemed heightened in the morning stillness. Despite the perfect tracking conditions, there were no signs of anything unusual, no massive footprints, no deep impressions in the mud. Only the forest's regular inhabitants had left their mark: rabbits, birds, and the occasional deer, their tracks weaving a story of quiet survival. Just as the silence settled, a sharp sound cut through the mist, a single resonant thwack that echoed between the trees. The noise was unmistakable, like wood striking wood, reverberating through the otherwise tranquil forest. In the world of Bigfoot research, this is known as a wood knock, a sound believed by some to be a form of communication among elusive forest dwellers. Yet the forest offers many explanations. A branch loosened by the storm could have fallen and struck another, creating the same sharp report. The aftermath of a storm often leaves the canopy unstable, and the forest is full of sudden, unexplained noises. Still, the sound was so deliberate, so out of place in the morning calm, that it sent a chill through the air. The forest fell silent once more, every creature pausing, as if listening for what might come next. Drawn by curiosity, I followed the road deeper into the woods, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. Along the way, the forest revealed new mysteries. Branches bent and twisted, some snapped cleanly, others contorted in unnatural shapes. Some branches were woven together, forming arches and patterns that seemed out of place among the wild tangle of the woods. These formations, known as tree breaks or structures, are sometimes thought to be territorial markers, signs left by something with both strength and intent. While wind and weather can break branches, the precision and force required for some of these breaks suggested something more. The storm had certainly left its mark, scattering debris and breaking weaker limbs, but some of the damage defied easy explanation. Certain branches were not just snapped, they were twisted, bent, and manipulated in ways that seemed to require immense strength and dexterity. High above the ground, a thick limb was bent sharply downward, forming a perfect angle that the wind alone would struggle to achieve. The arrangement of these breaks and bends hinted at a force both powerful and deliberate, leaving behind a silent message in the heart of the forest. Though there was no definitive proof, the clues scattered throughout the rainforest, the broken branches, the echoing knock, the untouched mud, wove together a tapestry of mystery. In this ancient, living wilderness, the possibility lingers that something extraordinary moves unseen, leaving only the faintest traces in the morning light. The Hoh Rainforest is a realm where time seems to slow and the outside world fades away. As you enter, the air thickens with moisture, carrying the scent of earth and ancient wood. The forest is a living tapestry, woven from countless shades of green, ferns unfurling in the dim light, sword ferns arching gracefully beneath towering Sitka spruce and western hemlock. Moss impossibly lush and vibrant, drapes from every branch and trunk, muffling footsteps and swallowing sound until only the faintest rustle of leaves remains. The moss here is more than a decoration. It is the forest's silent guardian. Draped in thick curtains, it absorbs every echo, creating a hush so profound that even the call of a distant bird seems to linger in the air before vanishing. The ground is a soft, spongy carpet, layered with centuries of fallen needles and leaves, feeding the roots of ancient giants. Sunlight struggles to penetrate the dense canopy, filtering down in golden shafts that illuminate the mist and highlight the intricate patterns of lichen and fungi clinging to every surface. The trees themselves are ancient, some over 1,000 years old, rising like pillars in a cathedral, their crowns lost in the shifting fog. The silence is not empty, but full of presence. The slow drip of water from leaf to leaf, the distant flutter of a Pacific wren, the subtle movement of a banana slug gliding across a fallen log. The forest is alive with secrets. In the undergrowth, licorice ferns and oxalis form a dense emerald carpet, while clusters of red huckleberries and salmonberries add bursts of color. High above, the branches are home to marbled murrelets and northern spotted owls, their calls rare and haunting. Roosevelt elk move silently through the shadows, their presence revealed only by the gentle sway of ferns or the soft snap of a twig. As dusk approaches, the forest shifts, the temperature drops, and a gentle mist rises from the ground, curling around the roots and trunks. The bugle of a Roosevelt elk echoes faintly through the trees, followed by the distant yips and barks of coyotes, their voices weaving through the labyrinth of moss and wood. The forest's inhabitants emerge cautiously, Douglas squirrels darting along branches, Pacific tree frogs calling from hidden pools, and the occasional flash of a pileated woodpecker's crimson crest. Night falls quickly beneath the dense canopy. The forest becomes a world of shadows and subtle movement, where every sound is magnified by the silence. The calls of coyotes blend with the soft hoot of an owl, and the gentle patter of rain on leaves becomes a symphony. Somewhere in the darkness, the faint laughter of a river otter or the splash of a beaver hints at hidden life along the winding Hoh River. In this profound quiet, every detail is heightened. The snap of a twig, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of a night bird, all are amplified, echoing through the stillness. The forest feels watchful, as if the ancient trees themselves are guardians of secrets too old to name. The Hoh Rainforest is a place of beauty and mystery, where the boundary between the known and the unknown is as thin as the mist that drifts between the trees. In the heart of the Olympic rainforest, the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and cedar. Every sound seemed amplified, the distant call of a thrush, the soft patter of water dripping from the canopy above. I moved quietly, careful not to disturb the delicate balance of this ancient place. In the world of Bigfoot research, some believe that leaving small gifts, simple offerings, can serve as a gesture of goodwill, a silent message of peace to whatever might be watching from the shadows. Today I chose 2 apples, their color almost glowing in the dim light, and placed them gently on a mossy log, careful not to disturb the intricate web of life that thrived there. The forest seemed to pause, as if acknowledging the offering. The apples sat quietly, a stark contrast to the wild tangle of roots and undergrowth. I stepped back, letting the silence settle, feeling the weight of the moment. As I made my way back through the undergrowth, my attention was caught by a patch of mud, darker and softer than the surrounding earth. The air was still, heavy with anticipation, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. There, pressed into the yielding earth, was an impression, large, unmistakably out of place. The print was not perfect, its edges softened by moisture, but its size and shape set it apart from the usual tracks of deer or bear. I crouched low, studying the details. The impression was wider and longer than any animal track I had seen in these woods, with a form that defied easy explanation. The mud bore the weight of something heavy, something that moved with purpose. The forest around me seemed to grow quieter, the usual chorus of birds and insects fading into a tense hush. Every sense was heightened, every detail magnified by the possibility of what I had found. I documented the print from every angle, careful to capture the subtle contours and the way the mud had been compressed. The evidence was tangible, a physical link to the mystery that had drawn me here. I knew that a single, partial print was not proof. It could be a trick of the light, a quirk of the earth, or the mark of a passing animal. But in that moment, surrounded by the ancient silence of the rainforest, it felt real, more real than any story or photograph. The gesture of leaving the apples and the discovery of the print had changed the atmosphere of my expedition. The forest no longer felt indifferent. It felt alive, aware, as if watching and waiting. The search was no longer one-sided. I had offered something to the forest, and perhaps, in its own way, the forest had answered. As darkness crept in and the mist thickened, I glanced back at the apples, wondering if my gesture would be accepted. The night was young, and the forest was holding its breath, the mystery deepening with every passing moment. During my time in the Olympic Rainforest, surrounded by the hush of ancient trees and the steady rhythm of rain, I received news that deeply affected me. Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum, a renowned professor of anatomy and anthropology at Idaho State University, had recently passed away. Dr. Meldrum was a leading authority in the study of primate locomotion, and his expertise brought a level of scientific rigor to the investigation of Bigfoot that was previously unmatched. His research focused on the anatomical structure of alleged Sasquatch footprints, meticulously analyzing thousands of casts collected from remote wilderness areas. Using precise measurements and comparative anatomy, Dr. Meldrum identified unique features in the prints, such as mid-tarsal breaks and flexible toes, that are not found in human footprints, but are consistent with a large non-human primate. He employed advanced imaging techniques and biomechanical modeling to demonstrate how the footprints reflected a foot structure adapted for efficient movement through rugged environments like the Olympic Rainforest. Dr. Meldrum's fieldwork often took him into environments just like this, damp, remote, and teeming with life, where he documented evidence with the utmost care, always mindful of the need for objectivity. He compiled a comprehensive database of footprint evidence from across North America, analyzing patterns in morphology, stride length, and geographic distribution. His findings were published in respected scientific journals where he argued that the anatomical consistency and biomechanical plausibility of the best evidence could not be easily dismissed as hoaxes. In his landmark book, Sasquatch, Legend Meets Science, Dr. Meldrum presented a thorough, evidence-based case for the existence of an undiscovered North American primate, bridging the gap between folklore and scientific inquiry. He also investigated other forms of physical evidence, such as hair samples and environmental DNA, always applying strict scientific standards to his analyses. Dr. Meldrum emphasized the importance of context, how the environment preserves or alters evidence, and how natural processes can be distinguished from genuine biological traces. His work inspired a new generation of researchers to approach the mystery of Bigfoot with open minds and scientific discipline, encouraging careful documentation and critical analysis. Through his dedication, Dr. Meldrum provided a framework for evaluating evidence in the field, helping to separate credible data from misidentification or fabrication. As I walked alone through the same wild landscapes that Dr. Meldrum studied so passionately, I felt the weight of his legacy, a legacy built on curiosity, integrity, and a relentless pursuit of truth. His contributions will continue to guide those who seek answers in the world's most mysterious places, reminding us that the search for knowledge is as vast and enduring as the forests themselves. As the last night of my adventure deepened, I decided to be more proactive. I wanted to see if I could get a response from whatever might be out there. I left an audio recorder running at my campsite to capture any sounds that might happen while I was away. Then, with my thermal night vision device in hand, I walked away from the safety of my campfire and into the darkness. The woods at night are a completely different world. Every sound is magnified, and your imagination can run wild. My senses were on high alert. After walking a few hundred yards down the road, I stopped and stood in complete silence for a long time, just listening. The air was still and cold. Then I decided to try a vocalization. Following the methods of other researchers, I cupped my hands around my mouth and let out a loud whoop sound. It was not a human yell, but a call that I hoped might sound like another primate. The sound echoed through the silent forest and then faded away. I stood perfectly still, my heart pounding, waiting for a reply. For a minute, there was nothing but the sound of my own breathing. I started to walk back towards my camp, sweeping the trees with my thermal imager. The device turns heat into an image, so any warm-blooded animal would glow brightly against the cold background. I saw the heat of a few small animals, maybe mice or squirrels, but nothing large. I was starting to feel a little disappointed. It seemed like my final night was going to end quietly. I reached the edge of my campsite and was about to step back into the circle of firelight when it happened. Crack! A loud, sharp noise shattered the silence. It came from the woods directly behind my tent. It was not the sound of a small branch breaking. This was the sound of a big, thick tree limb snapping, as if a huge amount of weight had been put on it. It sounded like a very large animal moving carelessly or deliberately making a noise to let me know it was there. I froze, aiming my thermal imager in the direction of the sound. I saw nothing but the glowing trunks of the trees. The sound was undeniable, and it was close. Whatever made that noise was big, powerful, and watching me. My solo adventure ended not with a clear sighting, but with a powerful, chilling confirmation that I was not alone in the Olympic Rainforest. Gap 2s. After the startling crack that ended my final night's investigation, curiosity overcame fear. With dawn still hours away, I set out to explore a section of the Olympic Rainforest that few have ever entered, guided only by the pale glow of my headlamp and the steady green display of my thermal imager. The forest here was denser, the ferns taller, and the moss thicker. Every footstep was muffled by a carpet of damp needles, making my movements almost silent. All around, the darkness pressed in, broken only by sporadic flashes of animal heat signatures, rabbits darting through undergrowth, a deer frozen in the beam for a heartbeat before vanishing, its hooves barely making a sound. But there were other noises too, unfamiliar, inexplicable. A low, rhythmic knocking echoed from deeper in the trees like wood striking wood. At first I thought it might be a woodpecker, but the cadence was irregular, deliberate, and seemed to travel, as if something was moving while making the sound. Occasionally, a distant guttural grunt would cut through the silence, answered by a higher-pitched yelp. The forest's usual chorus of frogs and insects seemed muted, as if holding its breath. Pausing beside a massive ancient cedar, I examined claw marks scored high on the trunk, too high for any known animal in the region. Nearby, a patch of ferns had been flattened, not trampled, but pressed down in a circular pattern. I knelt, feeling the ground. It was warm, as if something had recently lain there. As the hours passed, subtle shifts in animal behavior became apparent. The smaller mammals avoided certain trails, always skirting wide arcs around a particular thicket. Birds that should have been roosting instead flitted nervously from branch to branch, their silhouettes restless in the canopy. All the while the atmosphere grew heavier, the air thick with anticipation. The deeper I ventured, the more it felt as if I were being observed by something that belonged to the wild heart of the rainforest, something that left only clues and questions in its wake. When the first hints of dawn began to lighten the eastern sky, I retraced my steps, mind racing with the night's mysteries. The Olympic rainforest had revealed only fragments of its secrets, But in those unexplored depths, the boundary between the known and the unknown had never felt thinner. In the soft light of dawn, I carefully catalogued the evidence gathered during my nocturnal journey. The first item to examine was the peculiar set of tracks discovered near the flattened ferns. The impressions were deep, indicating significant weight, and the stride length suggested a bipedal creature. Each footprint had distinct elongated toes and a pronounced arch, features inconsistent with any known local fauna. Next, I analyzed the broken branches. Many were snapped at heights well beyond the reach of deer or bears, the fractures clean and forceful. Some branches showed signs of twisting as if wrenched by hands rather than broken by natural causes. This pattern suggested deliberate action, perhaps territorial marking or communication. I then turned my attention to the unusual environmental anomalies. Using a portable spectrometer, I scanned the area for any deviations. The readings revealed slight but consistent electromagnetic disturbances in the vicinity of the flattened ferns. These anomalies could indicate a disruption caused by the presence of an unknown entity, one that possibly emits or disrupts electromagnetic fields. Back at the base, I compared the thermal imager footage with known animal heat signatures. The unidentified heat patterns were larger and moved with a fluidity uncharacteristic of local wildlife. The rhythmic knocking sounds were also scrutinized, their audio frequencies analyzed and compared to woodpecker drumming patterns. The irregular intervals and varying pitch suggested a form of communication, perhaps a primitive language or signal system. Additionally, soil samples from the warm, flattened area revealed higher levels of organic material and trace elements not commonly found in that part of the forest. This could imply that whatever had rested there was not only large, but also had a unique biological composition. Finally, I reviewed the video footage of the high claw marks on the cedar trunk. Using software to enhance the images, I discerned that the marks were not random but formed a pattern, possibly a territorial or warning sign left by a creature with significant reach and dexterity. The convergence of these findings pointed to an unsettling conclusion. The Olympic Rainforest harbors an entity unlike any documented species, an enigma that blurs the line between myth and reality. As I compiled my data, the forest's secrets seemed to whisper, urging further exploration and deeper understanding. In the heart of the Olympic Rainforest, the environment is both ally and adversary. Weather shapes every moment of the search, its presence felt in ways both subtle and profound. As clouds gather above the ancient canopy, humidity thickens the air, muffling distant sounds and rendering the forest floor slick with moss and rain. Mist curls around the towering trunks, obscuring sight lines and dissolving footprints within minutes. In these conditions, evidence is ephemeral. Tracks fill with water, scents are washed away, and branches, heavy with moisture, bend or snap under their own weight. Wind becomes a messenger, carrying the creak of trees and distant calls, but also distorting sounds beyond recognition. The rhythmic drumming of rainfall on leaves can mask any movement, blending the steps of an unseen creature with the patter of 1,000 droplets. Lightning flashes illuminate the forest in stark relief, revealing fleeting glimpses of the unknown, while thunder reverberates through the valleys, unsettling even the sturdiest of wildlife. Temperature shifts at dawn, and dusk create layers of fog, cloaking the undergrowth and shrouding any traces of passage. Thermal imaging becomes unreliable as warm and cool currents swirl unpredictably. Even the electromagnetic anomalies recorded earlier fluctuate with the approach of storms, making it difficult to distinguish between natural and extraordinary phenomena. Yet, the elements do more than conceal, they also reveal. Heavy rains expose fresh impressions in the mud, while fallen branches reveal the passage of larger animals. The play of sunlight through the canopy highlights subtle disturbances, and the scent of earth after a storm can draw attention to recently upturned soil. In the Olympic Rainforest, The search for Bigfoot is not just a pursuit of the unknown, but a test of patience against a living, ever-changing landscape. Here, weather and wilderness are the silent witnesses, shaping every clue, every mystery, and every moment of discovery.